On a quiet June morning in 2021, the peaceful neighborhood of Willesden in North London became the setting for something far from ordinary. Inside Mi Quen Chong's home, what seemed like a routine visit from a close friend took a dark and unexpected turn. The atmosphere grew tense, and the events that unfolded behind closed doors would leave everyone who knew them shocked and searching for answers. What exactly happened that day? Gemma Mitchell was born on July 22, 1984 in Australia, into a well-to-do family. Her mother worked for the United Kingdom's Foreign and Commonwealth Office, an organization that now represents 54 countries with historical ties to the UK. Little is known about her family, except that she had a sister and that her parents separated when she was around 10 years old. Following the separation, her mother moved with Gemma and her sister to England. In England, Gemma attended King Edward's School, where tuition fees exceeded $2,500 per month. She later pursued a degree in human sciences at King's College London, a university known for its association with the UK's upper class. At the university, she was not only educated in philosophical and cultural aspects of human life, but also excelled in biology, particularly in experimental anatomy and human dissection. Gemma's passion for this field was evident as she continued her studies at the British School of Osteopathy, a field that focuses on the manipulation of muscles and bones to prevent or alleviate health issues. With this expertise, Gemma returned to Australia and established her practice, apparently doing well enough to acquire a property in Queensland, in the northern part of the country. Despite her apparent success in Australia, Gemma decided to return to England after 7 years, seemingly driven by a desire to reconnect with loved ones. Upon her return, Gemma moved in with her already retired mother. However, not everything was harmonious in the household. It is reported that her sister, possibly living with a partner, also resided in the house, leading to daily conflicts. At one point, a restraining order was issued against Gemma, which she violated in 2016, resulting in a conviction that she served under probation. Another source of tension was that Gemma had not worked a single day since returning to England, claiming she couldn't practice her profession because she wasn't registered with the General Osteopathic Council. However, there is no evidence that she made any effort to fulfill this requirement to resume her career. Gemma was known to be a person of faith and regularly attended an evangelical church. Through her faith, she met Mi Quen Chong, who was originally from Malaysia. According to some accounts, their first encounter was through a religious site called Christian Connection, and from that point on, the two found many common interests. Although Mi Quen Chong was almost twice Gemma's age, they quickly formed a close relationship. At that time, Mi Quen Chong was a 67-year-old widow who had lived in London for the past 30 years. It's unclear where her funds came from, but she wasn't short of money and owned a house where she rented a room to a crane operator named David, who had grown fond of her kind nature. Mi Quen Chong wasn't just kind in David's eyes. Those who knew her described her as sweet and even childlike. She was known for opening her home to people in need. Since 2015, she had a history of mental health issues, having been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and taking medication to prevent her mind from spiraling out of control. 2 years later, she experienced a manic episode, losing touch with reality, leading to a 6-month stay in a mental health unit. After stabilizing, she was discharged but later relapsed, writing numerous letters to then Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Prince Charles, claiming she had a relationship with the latter and could communicate with him via YouTube. Although these letters didn't contain alarming content, their frequency led authorities to take action. Buckingham Palace's Fixed Threat Assessment Center referred Mi Quen Chong to Brent's community mental health team, where she was prescribed antipsychotic medication, though she complained that it affected her appetite and sleep. This was the situation in 2020 when Gemma entered Mi Quen Chong's life. Mi Quen didn't hesitate to share her past struggles with her new friend. In return, Gemma kindly offered to help her with a spiritual healing process they embarked on together, an arrangement that would prove disastrous. As their trust grew, it was Gemma's turn to share her problems. She confided in Mi Quen that her family was going through a serious crisis. Despite the house's impressive exterior, it was a source of constant headaches inside. According to Gemma, she and her mother had decided some time ago to add an extra floor to the house. They hired 2 builders who took a $315,000 advance, but disappeared, leaving the house in shambles with the second floor's walls destroyed and large sections without a roof. Moved by this tragic story, Mi Quen offered to lend Gemma about $300,000 to complete the work. Over the following days, the two exchanged several text messages about the loan, but one day, Mi Quen informed Gemma that she had reconsidered and wouldn't lend the money. With a logical argument, she suggested that Gemma sell the large property, which was too big for just 2 people. She assured her that the sale proceeds would allow her to buy a more suitable home and still have funds left over. According to other accounts, Mi Quen also suggested selling some of the family's other properties to repair the house, as it wasn't their only asset. This change of heart didn't sit well with Gemma, who was already unhappy with Mi Quen's situation. According to David, the tenant, during this time, Mi Quen wasn't doing well. She wasn't eating properly, couldn't sleep, and spent hours writing letters to the Prime Minister and Prince Charles. David was so concerned for her well-being that he contacted social services to request a caregiver for his landlord. Unfortunately, help didn't arrive in time. One day, she vanished without a trace. While precise details of the immediate aftermath are unclear, it's presumed that David reported her strange disappearance to the authorities, prompting an investigation into her whereabouts. As the investigation unfolded, it was revealed that in the days leading up to her disappearance, Gemma had been trying to meet with her friend. However, Mi Quen had sent a message expressing that she didn't want to meet until after she had sold her house, as the topic was causing her immense stress. Even on the day Mi Quen went missing, Gemma sent a text asking to meet up, only to receive a blunt response. Mi Quen agreed to meet only if they avoided discussing the house or money, as both subjects were stressing them out. Concerned about her friend's prolonged absence, Gemma reportedly filed a missing person report with a charity organization. Yet, she told David something quite different through a messaging app, claiming that Mi Quen had decided to spend some time with relatives near the seaside to clear her mind. Nearly 2 weeks passed before a distinctive call came into the emergency center, setting off a chain of events. A woman on vacation with her family in a popular coastal town made the call. She reported finding a body in an advanced state of decomposition, missing its head. The head was discovered days later about 10 meters away in some bushes. Strangely, there was no blood found at either location. The remains were sent to the Forensic Institute, where the specialist faced the challenge of determining the exact cause of death due to the body's advanced decomposition. However, it was evident that the victim had suffered a severe brain injury and skull fracture, suggesting a significant impact with a blunt object shortly before death. The victim also had several broken ribs. What was particularly striking was that the head had been cleanly severed from the body. Additionally, 3 vertebrae and laryngeal structures were missing, though no signs of strangulation were found. Soon after, the deceased was identified as Mi Quen Chong. Once her identity was confirmed, authorities contacted her tenant and acquaintances, who provided details about the days leading up to her disappearance. As expected, Gemma's name surfaced as one of Mi Quen's close friends, though they had apparently grown distant recently for reasons unknown to them. Determined to uncover the truth, detectives utilized a technological resource that proved highly valuable: London's extensive surveillance network. The city is one of the most monitored in the world, with an estimated 70 cameras capturing the average person on a daily walk. Through this network, investigators soon found footage of Gemma arriving at Mi Quen's house early on the morning of June 11, 2021, carrying a large blue suitcase. She was later seen around midday leaving the house with 2 suitcases, visibly struggling with their weight. This footage became the starting point for authorities, who then worked backward through surveillance images to piece together Gemma's movements that morning and in the days that followed. By tracing Gemma's movements and financial transactions, authorities discovered that 15 days after June 11th, she rented a Volvo from Hertz. A security camera outside her home captured her hurriedly leaving the residence, struggling to load a suitcase into the trunk of the rented vehicle, which she had lined with a sheet for protection. According to images later released by investigators, the rented car was tracked en route to the place where Mi Quen's body was found. Along the way, one of the tires suffered a puncture, but Gemma didn't stop. However, on her return trip, the damaged tire forced her to stop at a service station. A worker at the station noticed the terrible noise the metal rim made on the asphalt as the car pulled in. He approached the visibly confused woman and asked if she needed help. Gemma claimed she needed assistance but said her phone had no reception, so he lent her his to make the call. The man recalls that Gemma told him she had been visiting relatives in a nearby town and was out for a drive when the tire incident occurred. When Gemma opened the trunk to retrieve the spare tire, he noticed a hard-shell suitcase that she moved with ease, suggesting it was empty. Nothing about the car seemed unusual, but one detail that stood out to the man and others at the station was that Gemma remained inside the vehicle with the windows down, despite the rainy, cold, and windy weather. Eventually, Lee Gordon, the person dispatched to assist Gemma, arrived. He later reported that the rented vehicle had a terrible odor, which he described as the kind that develops when moisture accumulates in an enclosed space over a long period, a concerning detail given that the car was a newly rented luxury vehicle. Lee also noted that Gemma appeared confused, asking the same questions multiple times before understanding his answers. When Lee inspected the flat tire, he found it completely destroyed, damage he described as unlikely to occur even in an explosion. He mentioned this to Gemma, who explained that she hadn't stopped sooner because she didn't feel safe where she was. Before putting on the spare tire, Lee observed Gemma easily moving a suitcase to the back seat. When he offered to place the damaged tire in the trunk, she insisted he put it in the back seat alongside the suitcase. Lee advised against this, warning that in the event of an accident, the tire could become a dangerous projectile. Additionally, its condition could damage the expensive leather upholstery, but Gemma insisted, and Lee complied. With Gemma's actions now reconstructed, investigators focused on determining Mi Quen's last known movements. They were able to locate footage from June 10th, which appeared to be the last time Mi Quen was seen alive. She was captured slowly and shakily, walking down a nearby street, clearly not in the best condition. Things soon took a turn for the worse for Gemma. On July 6th, nearly a month after Mi Quen's disappearance, authorities felt they had enough evidence and arrested Gemma to interrogate her as a suspect in her friend's death. However, the interrogation didn't go as investigators had hoped. Despite being confronted with the evidence, Gemma refused to cooperate, but her silence did her no favors. Investigators had obtained a warrant to search the house she shared with her mother. During the search of Gemma's residence, authorities discovered Mi Quen's passport, driver's license, and naturalization documents, along with her bank card and membership cards. But this wasn't the only shocking find. Investigators also unearthed personal and financial documents belonging to a recently deceased neighbor. It became clear that this was part of a sinister plan. Gemma had forged a will, allegedly left by Mi Quen, which allocated 95% of Mi Quen's estate to Gemma, purportedly to fund the renovations on her house, with the remaining 5% going to her mother. Mi Quen's estate was valued at nearly $1 million at the time. At Gemma's home, authorities also located the blue suitcase believed to have been used to transport the body. However, forensic tests on the luggage didn't reveal any DNA from the victim. 4 days after her arrest, on July 10th, Gemma was formally charged with Mi Quen's murder. Meanwhile, on July 13th, a virtual hearing took place, with Gemma appearing from prison. During this session, it was agreed that she would plead guilty on September 28th to opt for an expedited trial and potentially receive some leniency. However, on the scheduled date, Gemma pleaded not guilty to the charges. Given this, the trial was set to begin on September 26, 2022, though delays pushed the start date to October 11th. During the proceedings, the prosecution argued that the tire damage on the car Gemma drove occurred as she was searching for a place to dispose of the body, driving a considerable distance until the vehicle was no longer drivable, to distance herself as much as possible from the scene. The forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsy testified, providing details of his findings. He stated that the victim weighed 85 pounds, making it entirely plausible that, with or without the head, she could have fit in the blue suitcase. The jury was shown a series of ordered and explained videos that traced Gemma's movements on the day of Mi Quen's disappearance. They were also shown how it was possible to determine when the suitcase was empty and when it was carrying a significant load. A new piece of evidence presented in court was footage of Gemma arriving at a hospital on the night of the attack. Seeking treatment for a broken finger, she claimed was injured while closing a door. However, the prosecution argued that the injury likely resulted from a struggle during Mi Quen's murder. The prosecution described Gemma as a member of a wealthy family who received a privileged education, but appeared to be a compulsive hoarder, as the home she shared with her mother was found in a state of squalor, with rotting food in the kitchen and a bathroom in a deplorable condition. As for Mi Quen, several witnesses and even specialists confirmed that she was a vulnerable woman who had struggled with health issues, for which she had been treated, including a stay in a mental health facility for several months. Throughout the 2-week trial, Gemma sat silently in the dock, never uttering a word, while Mi Quen's family watched the proceedings from Malaysia via video link. The prosecution maintained that Gemma was desperate to obtain money to complete the renovations on her family home. The defense did not deny that Gemma was the person seen in the security camera footage, but argued that she had nothing to do with Mi Quen's death and that there was no evidence that the body had been transported in the suitcase Gemma carried. The defense attorneys for the accused also argued that the value of Gemma's family property was around £4 million, approximately $6.5 million. They pointed out that Gemma had savings of about $130,000, suggesting that financial gain was not a likely motive. Once all the hearings concluded, the jury retired to deliberate. Just 7 hours later, they returned with a verdict, declaring 28-year-old Gemma Mitchell guilty. Gemma showed no reaction to the verdict. The televised sentencing took place on October 28, 2022. Before the session began, Gemma smiled and blew kisses to her mother, who was seated in the public gallery. Before the judge delivered his sentence, a statement from Malaysia was read aloud, sent by one of Mi Quen's sisters. She expressed that losing Mi Quen was a shock for their entire family, and she found it difficult to comprehend the tragic circumstances. She added that thinking about the terrible experience Mi Quen must have gone through filled her with extreme anger and sorrow. Finally, she requested that the full weight of the law be applied and a severe sentence imposed, as they were condemned to think every day about the suffering her sister must have endured when her life was taken. After this statement was read, it was the judge's turn to speak. Before announcing his decision, he clarified that for the charge of murder, the only sentence he could impose was life imprisonment. His only task was to decide the minimum number of years Gemma would have to serve before becoming eligible for parole. The judge stated that he had no doubt this was a crime motivated by financial gain and premeditated. He acknowledged that Gemma had previously been a woman of good character, though extremely cunning. However, the aggravating factors of planning and premeditation, the mental and physical vulnerability of the victim, and what Gemma did with the body afterward outweighed any mitigating circumstances. He also emphasized that Gemma had shown no remorse or regret at any point. As the judge delivered his final words, Gemma remained expressionless in the dock, barely lowering her eyes for a moment upon hearing the decision. She was then sentenced to 30 years in prison. Gemma's first opportunity to request parole will be on October 21, 2056, by which time she will be 72 years old. Gemma's mother made statements that are perhaps unsurprising, considering she is likely the only person who continued to assert Gemma's innocence after the trial. In an interview with the program 60 Minutes Australia, she claimed that she had seen the contents of the suitcase Gemma brought home after returning from her friend's residence on the day of the events. She attributed what happened to her daughter to police corruption, insisting that the other events were simply a massive coincidence. One of the case investigators expressed regret that many questions remained unanswered, such as why Gemma kept the body for 15 days, why she separated the head from the rest of the body, and why she left the remains in plain sight in a beach town. Only Gemma knows the answers, and investigators hope that one day she will break her silence and provide the explanations they seek. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.